Are we going? Mm.
I am live with my brother from another mother, Dr. Dan. What's up, my man?
I can't take it, man. You are live from either a prison cell or an Applebee's bathroom. I can't tell what it is. Fortunately, you sound good, you look healthy. So that's what's important. But I'm a little worried about your location, man.
I only get one phone call and I just wasted it on you.
I will make sure it's not a waste, and I will tell your wife you chose me this time. And
So
she won't be surprised at all.
she won't be surprised because, if I'm not working, I'm playing around online doing some content creation with my good friend, Dr. Daniel Fran. So here we go. We are live on Instagram, LinkedIn, Facebook, YouTube. Like we are all over the world right now.
Well, that's pretty gnarly. I was gonna ask before we went live where this was streaming to. I just thought it had to be a link, but no, we're on all B's platforms, huh?
Yeah, next time we can also do simultaneously to your platforms, but we're testing this
Ooh.
out. And I know you wanted to work through the kinks on mine, so thank you.
And B, if there's one thing I know about you, you are full of kinks. So
Well, that's a good segue because we are, no, that's actually not even a segue. We are jumping in today to talk about, I wouldn't say our newest project, and maybe it is our newest project. It's not a new project. Anybody who's watching and listening, by the way, we'd love to hear from you in the comments. We've been doing podcasting for, I don't know, 5 years maybe
yeah, we
together.
got to go back and look. It's been a while since we. Well, I started mine around COVID, and you found me pretty quickly, and we hit it off right away.
We did, and we haven't stopped since. We've had different, definitely iterations and permutations of our work together. But the bottom
Hmm.
line is, we've been working together, bringing a lot of things out to the world. Not the least of which is our mentor, our teacher, Dr. Viktor Frankl.
Always, Dr. Frankel is, and that's what brought us together, and that's what keeps us going together, is sharing his messages in bigger and better ways and in different ways. We did the Viktor Frankl Meeting Academy years ago, and that had a good following, and at some point we had to decide we had other projects to work on, and this has been, men's peer groups is definitely an important one to both of us, right? Incorporating Dr. Frankel's teachings, not just his, but all of the logotherapists worldwide in the past darn near 100 years, um, but specifically for men, because being a man, working with men, we know men struggle, and sometimes we struggle all too quietly.
Yeah, and you come at it from a little more of a clinical training. I come more from a spiritual, pastoral, counseling, coaching training, and I think our skill sets really complement one another. I feel very called to be bringing the work of Viktor Frankl out with you to the world. And again, like you said, different mediums. The how might be different, the why, right? If you know your why, you can do anyhow. The why is always the same, and you just named it. So let's do it. Let's bring this meaning content inspired by Viktor Frankl, refracted through the lens of Dr. Dan and me, to not only the world, but specifically today to women, which isn't necessarily our target audience. Somebody once said to me, B, why did you shift from working with men and women to only helping men? I said, I am not only helping men. In fact, I think in many ways, I'm helping women more by helping their men. And that's the
Uh,
topic today.
Agreed, agreed. And not necessarily our target audience, and admittedly, being two married men with an assortment of daughters between us, we're not often very good at even understanding women, and we certainly do not profess to fully know and be able, we can help, being that's our professions, but we would never assume we fully understand the world of women. But we're pretty good at understanding men, and we know that many women are connected with men, and if men are struggling, the people they're close to are struggling. And I know for me, that's what I see in my office too often. A woman who loves her husband, wants her marriage to be better, to stay married, and either literally drags her husband to therapy or comes herself because he won't, asking for help. How do I improve this marriage situation? Um, and it's sad to watch. It's sad for me to know that some men just won't ask for help. On the other hand, conversely, I'm always really happy when a man does that courageous act and reaches out and connects or emails or calls, says, "Hey, I need some mentorship. I need some guidance. May even need therapy." That's a big step.
Does it ever work when a woman drags her partner to the table? I don't know if I've been doing this for a long time like you. I don't know if it's ever really works. I guess in couples therapy, it's different. But when a guy, reaches out to me and says, "Hey, my wife wants me to talk to you," it maybe it works once. I rarely do I see an ongoing relationship with that type of guy.
Agreed. It's I agree and disagree, right? So for me, I know the importance of that first meeting and pouring on the Dr. Dan charm to try to convince this gentleman he really does need help. And by the Dr. Dan charm, I really mean letting him know it's okay to be honest here, but that he probably has some things to work on. And that is just critical in those first 55 to 60 minutes, which we need to talk about why that's so unfortunate in therapy. In that first session, to convince him, hey, you have some responsibility here. Because if not, if he is not willing or ready to take responsibility and accountability and make some changes, you're right. That relationship is over. It's going to be all her fault. It's she's crazy. She does this wrong. She doesn't cook like my mother does. Whatever it is, if he's going to blame her, that relationship, our therapeutic relationship won't last long. And I would argue that their relationship might not last long.
Yeah, so it's a fine line. We're reaching out right on, in this conversation to women, but it isn't necessarily send us your men. It's um, we are providing different platforms for men, and we just really want to get to them, and we want to get to the men who are wanting and ready to do this work. But one of the things I do see so deeply in relationships is that um, men need to do this work of emotional, excavation and spiritual exploration and, psychological sort of development, because they're oftentimes their partner, the female in the relationship, if they're in a relationship with a female, is doing the work, right? She's much more
Mhm,
likely to be reading the books, to be in a
mhm.
therapeutic relationship, to be in a communal setting, whether it's, one-on-one with other women or if it's in a group setting. And I just see this over and over again that she's outpacing him. And that is a recipe for disaster in my experience in a relationship.
Oh, I see it all too. That word you use, outpacing, totally, right? When she is growing and he is sitting on the couch watching sports or playing video games, man, that disconnect can only go so far before the rubber band breaks. And you said some key words there, man. Spiritual exploration, emotional excavation, like, yeah, getting to the roots. And come on, like, I often forget because you and I live in this world. We do this every day, not just with other men, but for ourselves as well. And sometimes we're not even good doing it for ourselves. But all too often, men aren't doing this work. And I've got another Dr. Dan story for you. So yesterday afternoon, I got done early. I think I had a cancellation or something. I said, you know what? I'm just gonna do a Dr. Dan afternoon. I've been wanting to see that new Star Wars movie, get some deep philosophical grounding in Jedi's and George Lucas lore. So I'm gonna go check out a movie. My wife was working. I had the afternoon off unexpectedly. I went, had just a nice dead brain kind of time. Shut the brain off, man, because it was not a very deep philosophical movie. It was cute. Get done with the movie. It's late afternoon, early evening. I said, man, I got a taste for some chicken wings. I haven't had chicken wings in so long. I've been eating healthy, eating veggies. I'm like, you know what? I just rotted my brain with Star Wars camp. Might as well rot the insides just a little bit more before returning to health today. And so I went to the local wings joint. There's the family section over here, sweet, little mom, dad, kids in there eating their chicken wings. And I'm like, I'll go, feeling like the lone man in there. I walk into the bar. I sat down and ordered some chicken wings and a beer. And I just started looking around, B, and I'm surrounded by dudes, right? In that, just all men, just sitting there, either staring up at the screen by themselves, or I won't even repeat what I was hearing to the left of me, man, because there's like I really felt like having a therapeutic intervention there. Three men sitting there, complaining about work, wives, and all the things that we typically complain about in an unhealthy state. My heart broke for him, for all those dudes. I was hoping, like, man, I just hope you're just having a Dr. Dan time and maybe just eating a couple chicken wings. But I had the feeling when some of those guys came up to the bar and the bartender said, "Hey, so and so, how you doing?" I was like, you're here way too much, brother. You need something better. You need something different. And too many of us are obviously too many of us are spending too much time sitting at the bar, drinking beer, staring at a sports game that we really barely even care about. When our wives are back at home, our partners are back at home, our girlfriends, our children, our daughters are, oh man, there's the book.
Did I tell you
I,
I wrote a book?
I've heard about it. I think I put a
I,
few letters in it.
all you have to do is look at my ridiculous Instagram feed with these terrible AI generated images. By the way, firing my marketing team. But it takes place in a bar, and it's a
Yeah.
middle-aged dude who goes to a bar, who's been living the bar. And the bar's a great, it's just kind of stereotypical, right? It's just so familiar. It's so primal. It's been around
Mhm.
for hundreds, thousands of years, like this tavern kind
Thousands.
of vibe. And he goes in there and he's asked these pickup lines: "What's your name? What do you do? Come here often? Are you single? Blah blah blah." And all of a sudden, they become deeper conversations, or invitations to a deeper conversation. And I just keep seeing you're the invitation to that conversation at that bar. I know that's not what you did, but that's exactly where I think we meet men, is at the
Mhm.
proverbial bar, because you're a real dude. Even though you have those letters in front of your name, you're a banged up brother like me. We're in a peer group together, and I think that that's just a great jumping off point.
Yeah. Yeah. That's our goal, is meeting men where they're at and helping them become better. Meeting them at the bar and helping them realize there's more to be done at home or in the world, not just at the bar. Right. And don't get me wrong, meeting your boys at the bar once in a while for a beverage, beautiful idea, right? I love traveling down to Indianapolis to see my buddies down there, different places, Fort Wayne, but um not not alone every day, where your best friend is the bartender who's like, "Oh, you want the regular?" Norm from Cheers was funny back in the 80s, but he's not funny as a real man.
No. It's sad. It's very sad. One of my favorite teachings by, I think it's Allison Armstrong, is that when women go out together, they sit across from one another. And when men go out together, they sit side by side, like a bar, like a sports arena, like golfing, like whatever. And one of the reasons why I think men's peer groups is so powerful is that we literally, I guess in person and figuratively online, sit across from each other. We
Mhm.
look at each other. We see each other. This word intimacy, I love it. Wayne Dyer says intimacy. Most guys, you say intimacy, they think sex, right? But
Totally.
but intimacy at the deepest level is to see and to be seen. And there's nothing lonelier in the world, in my experience, than being in a relationship with a friend and you don't feel seen. You don't see each other.
True.
It's lonely. And men's peer groups is the antidote to the bar scene. Not again, that's nothing wrong with it, but we can go farther. We can go deeper, and that's why we created men's peer groups.
Yeah, that's what we do, man. That's a good segue into what is men's peer groups. So much better than being at a bar. Uh, that into me see. Um, I'm just thinking about our last peer group together with the guys, and it was good. And I think the great thing for us is we're not Dr. Dan and B. We're just two dudes with other dudes that are growing together, and we have a variety of peer groups. For men that want to try the peer group experience, yeah, we behave as B and Dr. Dan there, right? We're there to lead and facilitate. But when you get to kind of come into a cohort with some other brothers, it's a beautiful thing, man. That structure, one of the things I was thinking about, what makes us so much different than therapy, right? And I spend a lot of my time in therapy with men, especially those that are encouraged to go by their partners, um, just teaching how to communicate and validate. That takes, unfortunately, dude, that could take weeks. That could take months, right? 55 minutes once a week, 6 weeks, and it's still hard to do. The intensity that we grow, teach, and address these things in a men's peer groups, like 4 hours in a meeting a month, man. That's intense. It's intense to pay attention to. It's intense to use those skills that we encourage and promote. But that's what makes them stick, and that's what makes me want to come back. I'll be honest, and I've told our guys this. Like, I look at that 4 hour block on my schedule every month, like, 4 hours sitting in this chair in this screen, and like, yeah, man, but I'm hanging out with those guys. It's, we've connected with that, another word of yours, intimacy in the past year and a half, 2 years in such powerful ways. And that's what a lot of men need.
Yeah, and their women, whoever that is, mothers, sisters, wives, daughters, need that too. What'd you say? Communicate and validate?
Yeah.
Right? Like, and it's more than just, sort of base level communication. It's really one of the things we, oftentimes say in men's peer groups. I don't think we say it on a virtual one, but this is a place to check your Superman cape, right? You don't have to be Dr. Dan in here or Dr.
Mhm.
B or, all the titles and all the things. And I'm going to actually, out you in a second because I have struggled with this for years. I ran peer groups prior to this when I was Rabbi B, and I
Mhm.
realized like I did that because I was hiding in plain sight. I was the sage
Mhm.
on the stage. I was
Mhm.
the lead, but I wasn't in it, and I wasn't letting people in. And maybe that wasn't the role, I could argue, but I kept doing that. And then when I finally joined a peer group, a men's peer group, the first cohort of our new organization, I realized there's a whole different thing about being the sage on the stage versus being just a banged up brother in the trenches, learning how to communicate and validate.
Yeah, man. You called me out on that about a year ago. I joined men's peer group, and I was being Dr. Dan and thinking like a therapist and trying to offer help to all these guys. And, you know, it was probably about this time last year. I said, "B, I think I'm done, man. This isn't for me, right? This isn't working." And you sat me down and lovingly and quite directly said, "Quit being such a, we're live, aren't we? I can't say what you really said." Dang, that was close. I almost pulled a B there. But you held me accountable to say, "Hey, man, you're not being vulnerable. You're out there with your facade, with your professional. You're being too professional. You're not being real." And I said some rude things back at you for seeing me, and then I thanked you. I'm like, "All right, I'll try." And that's been a huge change for me. Come on, guys, how many of us do this, right? We are what we do. We are the person we need to be in the moment. How often do we get the opportunity to do that work, that exploration, that excavation, excavation of who we really are? Not often, man. Too many masks.
I've met men who, we meet men typically at midlife, whatever, however you want to define that. But I've met men who've never even considered vulnerability or intimacy as something that happens in an all male setting. And I grew up in that world, so it's not surprising to me. I mean, the locker room, the last thing you want to do is be vulnerable, right? The
Right.
last word you're going to use is intimate. It's
It's
like,
it's funny. I mean, what for many of us now, I mean, of a certain age, our first experiences in the locker room were in like junior high or high school, and being intimate there was a quite inappropriate. But what do we do then? And we're too busy walking around covering ourselves, right, hiding, and that's that was our first lesson. And so many of us had so many other lessons of like, no, boys don't cry, men don't cry. Uh, what are some of the toxic masculine messages? I hate that phrase, but some of the unhealthy masculine
bootstrap it,
messages
go it
we get.
alone, right?
Oh, go it alone. Yeah.
And we it's weak to have problems, right? Deal with it, suck it up, man up, which is why we changed the name from Man Uprising because it just felt too triggering, I think, for a lot of people. And men's peer groups is a more descriptive term. But see here's kind of the crux. And we titled this as women, send us your partners and we'll help them become true men or something like that. Because the men that I've been guiding tend to only think of intimacy as something that happens in their bedroom, and vulnerability is only something they would show to their partner or their wife. And although that's a beautiful thing and we want to help men get there, it can't be relegated to that one space, to that one relationship. Because I talk to women who say, I don't want to be everything to him. I don't want to be his emotional
Yeah.
outlet. I don't want him to only have release physically and emotionally when we have sex, right? He wants to have sex in order to feel, and typically she wants to feel in order to have sex. And so if you have to have sex in order to feel, you start turning your partner, turning her into another. You start turning her into a vehicle so that you can feel your feelings. So I'm going to sum it up by saying what she says is essentially, I want him to feel his own damn feelings.
Amen. Man, that's yeah, so good. And as you're talking, I'm sitting here thinking like, I think for me personally, even as a therapist, learning to be able to express my emotions, but especially love to other people, to you, to our peer group, to my friends and brothers, has only helped me become a better husband and a better father. I'm much more open with my feelings, but also respectful of my wife's space that she can't be everything for me and for my emotions. And I certainly can't expect my daughters to be. But you can when I need it, man. And you have been. And the other brothers we surround ourselves with and the other people we choose to have around us have been. And so building that team, that network has only made me better for my wife, for my family, for my work. Um, and I owe that to men's peer groups and to this relationship and other relationships with men that have opened up to opened up to understanding their emotions.
It's a beautiful thing to, yeah, I'd like to think you could get there before midlife, and I think there are exceptions to the rule, but I do
Mhm.
think that midlife is a particular crossroads that lends itself to this work because there's a thousand reasons. I think we're more, at least I can only speak for myself. That's, by the way, a principle in men's peer groups. We don't talk in the second person you, we talk in the first person singular I. I experience share. I don't tell another person what to do, another man what to do. I don't offer advice. We offer experience share. My experience share in this is that um, I wasn't comfortable in my skin enough to look another man in the eyes and say, I love you. I do, Dan. I love you so much. It's like such a beautiful thing to be able to love another man and no longer be caught up in the sexuality and in the image and in the all of the stuff in the first half of life as men that is bred in that locker room culture, that we start to breed it out or we start to work it out in midlife, and then we create a community and a container with sort of understandings and culture and rules that really nurture this and support it. It's just such a perfect positive storm that lends itself to, I think, men at midlife really experiencing vulnerability and intimacy.
I don't even know what else to say, B. That was beautiful. You're so right. And I love you. I love you for what you just said and who you are and who you've been to me, man. And that's it's so freeing to be able to say that, but it's so real too, right? Like I don't have to question that. I don't have to be like, oh man, does B want to take me to bed now? No, that's not, that's not the intimacy we talk about here. It's an emotional intimacy that, you know, many cultures throughout history have understood in different ways. And in some ways, we've lost that in the past 100 years since the Industrial Revolution, maybe hundreds of years, but we're missing that. We're certainly missing that here in our culture, and that's what you and I and the men we work not we work with the men we our brothers in men's peer groups are trying to share with others, that ability to be intimate with other people, with other men, to make us better. Iron sharpens iron, and it brings us back to our families transformed.
Yeah, my wife, Ariella, would maybe next time we'll get her on here. It might be nice to have a woman. We should have actually Michelle and Ariella on here talking about the truth.
Yeah, let's go live and unfiltered with them and see what happens.
Maybe we'll do that one pre-recorded so that we can have some editing in that. But she would definitely say, I know I can speak for her, at least on this one particular pointed issue at this moment in time, and never again will I do so, that I am a softer version of myself, and I'm still not soft enough. That's a work in progress. because of my men's peer groups. Like she can always tell when I've had a men's peer group because I'm just less tense. I'm just a little
Mm,
kinder. I listen a little better. I stop fixing a little more, a little less. And it doesn't last forever. It doesn't last very long, but it lasts for a little bit. And
mhm.
she sees it, and she usually acknowledges it.
Yeah, yeah. Usually for me, it's about 2 weeks, and then Michelle's like, "You got another peer group coming up? You gonna talk to the guys and get yourself sorted out?" 2 weeks. Um, no, I agree. It makes us better. I am curious, and maybe this is a good live conversation. If you don't want to transition to this, just call me back. But you know, we've been together in the men's peer groups for about 2 years now. But you were in a peer group before that. Where did that come from? Because now and we'll talk maybe afterwards about men's peer groups experience, MPGX, and where that's going. Where did your time with men's peer groups come from?
This formal iteration that we now call men's peer groups.
Hmm.
Or just yeah, that's a confusing thing, and I like the confusion about our name. Like, we're kinda synonymous now. It's like, "Pass me a Kleenex," right? That's a brand,
Hmm.
and
Hmm.
it's synonymous with the tissue, and I think men's peer groups, one of the reasons why we chose this name is because we just really wanted to, at least I wanted to de-emphasize the brand and really emphasize the experience, because a men's peer group, takes many forms, and there's many organizations out there. One of the reasons why we formed our men's peer groups is because I couldn't find the right cross section of opportunities. There are faith-based peer groups, and usually not the faith that I grew up in. Most of them are Christian. That really wasn't interesting or an option for me. And most of the men I know, like, they're spiritual, they're not religious. So, if you're Christian, you'll find your way to a Christian-based faith based peer group, and there's plenty of them. But what do you do with the other, I don't know, 50% of the population that's looking for something a little more secular, but doesn't want to go into the manosphere, doesn't want to get into the bro culture, doesn't want to get into the typical locker room banter, now grown-ups, for the grown-up version of it. And there's a lot of that out there.
Hmm.
Was also looking for something, again, spiritual, emotional, psychologically savvy. Couldn't find it. And
Yeah.
so I wanted to find that sweet spot in the middle. And that's when I met Dave Mann and Cam Moken, my other two co-founders, and I consider you a co-founder, especially around MPGX. We'll talk about that. But they brought an amazing infrastructure from their world, which was EO, Entrepreneurs Organization, and YPO, Young Presidents Organization. And that's a business networking sort of community. And it's also for young presidents, and they were becoming middle aged. Now they are middle aged, and so they were looking for something that wasn't business bound and wasn't for was geared more towards a middle aged man. And it was sort of like that peanut butter chocolate commercial back in the day, right? You dipped
Yeah.
your peanut butter into my chocolate, and like, wow, their structure together with this content that I've been passionate about and you and I dive into just fits together like a hand in glove. And that's when, about 4 years ago, Man Uprising was born, and it evolved, and now it's men's peer groups, and here we are.
Uh, just, I don't know if anybody else cares. For my own sake, how in the world did you run into Dave and Cam? Love those guys, great dudes. How did you find them?
I'm here in Denver. That's where they live, and I think I just started seeing them at different events I was going to. I work exclusively now with men. I was sort of shifting into it then, and the men that I work with tend to be entrepreneurs, kind of entrepreneurial spirit for sure. Tend to be middle age, and word travels fast. I have a niche here that not a lot of people are vying for. I think it also revolved around Viktor Frankl. I didn't know if you know this, but I'm pretty loud and proud about Viktor Frankl. Did you know that?
What?
Right. Um, so, anyways, I don't know. That's how we met, and the rest is history. And what's amazing, though, is and I've been part of a lot of business ventures, like 9 entrepreneurial startups over the past 10 years. And when you're around, with your a winning formula, when people just start going, yes. And you talk about Viktor Frankl, people say yes. Man's Search for Meaning, yes. Men's peer group, middle-aged men, spiritual, not religious. And all of these are just yeses. And that's the momentum that I feel the wind in our sails right now.
Absolutely, man. That's yeah. I just I love that little bit of history because you're right. My experience with you in the past 5 or 6 years that we've known each other and fallen in love with each other is uh, uh, you are great with the next shiny object. And so, right, that's why I'm so glad you're in a cell right now. We can actually do this. But the structure that Dave and Cam brought was so cool. I love it in our peer groups, but I also like uh, that there's some flexibility in our virtual work, right? It works really well live, and we're adapting it for virtual. And that's, check this out, master the segue. That's where men's peer groups experience comes in. Oh, home run, right? So I've been with you in the virtual cohort for almost 2 years now, and we wanted to share that with more guys. But the barrier to entry, I mean, first of all, everybody in men's peer groups right now seems to in some way know B, right? This was a B exclusive group, um, and ironically, they're not all bald, but we had to figure out a way to bring to lower that barrier of entry, and that's what we started crafting a couple months ago, and really pre-launching this month is the men's peer group experience, where you don't have to sign up for 4 hours, because that would be kind of weird to sit down for 4 hours. Well, many of us do it at a bar anyway, sit there for 4 hours with a bunch of dudes we don't know, but we don't talk about important things too often. And so that's what the men's peer group experience is all about, is a briefer version of men's peer groups, 90 to 120 minutes, an hour and a half to 2 hours, somewhere in between. We say set aside 2 hours, and if we land the plane early, nobody's ever angry at that. And we go through a smaller structure, but still a structure intended to get us to share and open up.
Yeah, I think it's a winning formula. The men's peer group cohorts, again, like in person or virtual, 4 hours once a month. You're committing to the group. You're
Mhm.
committing to being there every month. Like guys fly back from vacations if they need to, and it's a commitment. It's a commitment to the group. MPGX is a commitment to yourself, right?
Yeah,
This is good for you to show up, to check in, to go through a process. Right now, as Dan said, we're offering it twice a month, but my vision has always been to offer it daily, a subscription
mhm,
model, like jump in whatever you want, catch a group, get fueled up, get clear, feel some authenticity and vulnerability and intimacy, but that's a you opportunity versus a we opportunity. And it isn't that we, don't care about the community or the we factor in the MPGX, but it's a high bar to ask guys to, to invest those 4 hours and
yeah,
all that is entailed.
yeah, yeah. You really got to want to invest. You got to like the guys you're with, and look forward to spending time with them. And the goal is hopefully through MPGX, maybe we form other cohorts, but it can be a standalone. Pop in your 90 to 120 minutes, feel what B and I have been talking about, feel connected, feel intimate with some other guys, grow a little bit, and then go on about your day, right? And ideally, like you said, hopefully by the end of the year, we have at least weekly, man, daily. How awesome would that be? Guys just popping in a couple times a week, like getting to, I don't know, man, we're going to make a lot of therapists angry because in some ways this is a lot better for guys depending on, what their needs are.
Well, I've worked, as have you, one on one with people, with men in particular, over the past 25 years. And it obviously it serves its purpose. However, it's part of the problem too, right? A man can be vulnerable in my office. Can you be vulnerable in a group of men? Rarely do we end up joking and, jabbing at each other in my office. Can you refrain from that in a group of men? We have a principle, like there's no, I mean, it's not that there's no humor, but there's no joking or there's no humor at another man's expense. There's none of the,
Yeah.
sort of the banter that is really, as a man, I can say this on behalf of all men, is just a way to protect our vulnerability. And so we try and minimize or eliminate all of that. And, in a one-on-one setting, you can learn to do that. Can you learn to break some of these habits in the company of other men?
Absolutely. Yeah. Hey, come on. We get some good humor in our groups, but it's fun, healthy, good humor, and not that defensive avoidance, awkward chuckle of I'm going to make some bad dad joke because I don't want to deal with my feelings or whatever it is. It's such a beautiful difference in there. And yet, I'll argue with you. Sometimes it's at somebody else's expense, usually yours, brother. But it's always in good humor. Sometimes it turns out to be at your expense when something goes awry. Well, I'll take that back. It was when you were the leader and things would go awry. Now I can't wait to see what happens in our group with you releasing controls to the co-pilot now and just stepping back into coach class with the rest of us.
Yeah, I look forward to it, honestly. It's uh, it's just an amazing arena or opportunity to learn new ways to be with men. There's lots of examples of this. Another one of my favorites in men's peer groups is we have clearings.
Mhm.
Um, they are opportunities to say hard things, as I call it, and hear hard things. And as a man, not to defend, not to fix, right? This is one of my biggest, areas to work on in my relationship with Ariella, because my first reaction is either to be defensive or to
Mm.
fix the problem. And it's a muscle that I've been learning in men's peer groups of no, take a deep breath and just receive it, because this is her lived experience. This is true to her, right? And she's not asking me to fix it. She's asking me to receive it. I don't even have to agree with it, but can I just learn to sit there and receive what another person has to offer, and then not to have to move to fix it, and let her, or in this case, the guys in the group, whoever's sharing, clearing with me, work it out for himself or ask what he needs. That's just, as a man, I know a lot of women are listening to this going, right? That's just worth its weight in gold. That's why one of the reasons why you should send us your men.
Cut, clip, print that, put it all over the place. I need that last minute of Bism just on loop in my office, man. That's so much of what the basics of couples counseling, the focus on a man is not trying to fix, not even having to agree, just validate and listen, communicate without defense. That's beautiful, man. And that's, you know, we don't communicate in men's peer groups as though, we're husbands and wives, but we're building those skills that transfer over there. And it really does, that clearing exercise is so powerful. And we've seen it work in beautiful, powerful ways. And we've also seen it fail. And I think that's been an interesting dynamic as well when, a man can't take feedback and what happens there. And guys, if or ladies, this, guys, if you can't take feedback, I mean, what good are you in a relationship? Because God knows we're not perfect, man. And you got to have somebody point that out to you so you can grow.
Yeah, I was in a peer group 3 years ago, and I heard hard things and I didn't receive the hard things, and I left. It was like it was in person, it got really heated, and I just, it was yelling, and I left. And that's, I think, very familiar probably to a lot of women listening to this, about oftentimes how men react, right? And it's taken me 3 years. I don't do that anymore. It's uncomfortable. I do not like to hear hard things, but that's the work. Can I still stay in the relationship, not just take my ball and go home?
Yeah.
And it's such a natural reaction for human beings, but I think especially for men, like, and so anyways, to have an arena, to have a sort of a mat to work out on and work it out on, and then go back and live it in real time with my wife or my kids or whomever, has been invaluable.
Yeah, man, I have to wonder how many of those gentlemen in that bar last night were there because they just had a dust up with their partner, their spouse, their wife, and, needed to cool off with a beverage. Now, I can't remember if that's what I was thinking in the bar or if that is the first chapter of your book. Can you
Hey,
remind
did you
me?
know I wrote a book?
Oh, tell me more.
Yeah, that's that's how the book opens up with don't come back till you figure your shit out. And
We're live, brother. You can't do that.
I
I
even
knew
saw
one
my
of us
kids.
was going to mess it up.
I even saw my
Damn
kids
it.
on the feed. Anyways, but that's what men's peer groups is about. Women,
Mhm.
send your husband, father, son, brother to a men's peer group to figure his s out and
Figure his stuff out.
figure his stuff out. And I just think it's such a win-win. And then you'll go home and you will communicate and validate and go on a date. I added that in there.
Ooh, I like that. Communicate, validate, go on a date, and maybe procreate. We're not going to poetry here, man. We're not going to Poetryville. Too much poetry. I think there was a book I read about men with a lot of poetry. Was that your book? It's a
Did
really
I tell you I read a book?
You know, I believe that's such a beautiful difference, right? You come to a men's peer group, you do the hard work, you feel better, you go home, communicate, validate, go on a date, procreate. You go, you get in a dust up, you go to the bar, you have a beer, then another, then another, then another. You go home, you feel terrible. You're probably getting a bigger dust up, or at least you're sleeping on the couch, not procreating there. And you wake up the next morning and you're miserable, and the problems are still there, or worse. So
Love
yeah,
it.
man.
So we have MPGX rolling. I'm not going to put a date on here because it'll be evergreen material, but it's what is it, the first
First
Thursday? And
Thursday and third Tuesday right now. Look, hey, just go to menspeergroups.com, sign up. We'll give you all the information. We'll send you a beautiful flyer with all the dates, links, all of that kind of stuff. Or you just find me or B and you say, hey, how do I get into this men's peer group stuff? And we will gladly guide you right in.
and if you act now, we'll make the first 45 days free. Oh,
Wow.
wait. Yeah, that's
Yeah,
special.
first
Special
45
offer.
days. You could have the potential of 3 free men's peer group meetings if you sign up and come to all 3. Because we want you to have that experience. We want men to be better for themselves, for their partners, for their kids, for the world, right? If we help one man at a time get a little bit better, it definitely becomes a better place to be.
And whether you're a man watching this or a woman sending a man to us, remember it will lead to better communicate, validate, go on a
Go on a
date,
date,
procreate,
procreate.
and never separate. How about that? You just keep going.
You are a lyrical genius.
Dan, all I can say is it's an honor and privilege to be on these lives with you, to be sharing these messages with the world, and to be now scaling up men's peer groups and MPGX. Dan, I love you.
Love you, brother. It's always an
Love
honor. Let's keep doing this. Let's get more men procreating, not separating, validating, communicating, dating. It's gonna keep going, man.
I love it. We're going to keep going, and it's a pleasure. Have a wonderful weekend, and we'll talk soon.
Take care, brother.